Hey, welcome back everyone. My name is Trap. Today I'm going to go over a configuration of LazyVim that's very simple. I call it bare bones. I'm going to do an uninstall and install of that configuration using the nvim script that you've seen in my other video, number 22. What I'm going to also demonstrate is how I'm using a tiling window manager combined with tmux to allow me to move rather quickly from desktop to desktop for the primary purpose of changing font sizes without having to resize things on the fly. So I'm going to demonstrate that first. So in my tmux session, I'm going to take a look at the windows that I'm attached to currently on desktop number 5. So you see I have my notes, nvim and demonstration. And at the top of this screen, if I look at the session itself, it gives me an overview of all 3 windows. It's a little hard to read, but if we move over to desktop number 6, we're going to see the same information, but it's a lot easier to see. I didn't have to do anything. I'm not adjusting sizes of anything. The way I'm doing this is I have 2 bash shells running from both desktops, and I've done a tmux attach to the same session. So when I move back and forth between the desktops as fast as I want to type, I see that same information and I don't have to resize my screen. I don't have to resize fonts. I'm finding this is useful when I need to do a presentation. When we need the text really big, I've got a setup. When we need to see more information, I just swap to the alternate window, or in this case, it's an alternate desktop that's running tmux that's attached to the same session. So you're going to see me use that throughout the video. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go right into the nvim, and you notice on the upper left-hand corner of this screen there is a file directory named Barebones. And the way we're getting at is we're running this simple set of commands to clear the screen, echo to give me a blank line, look for the Barebones, and then echo again. I get this. Nothing magical there. Now what we're going to do is we'll run nvim with the D option, and this time we're going to tell it to delete Barebones, and it removed Barebones. And the way I know that, if I run that echo command again, I see that that is now deleted. Now this time I will go and install that, and to install it I get rid of the -D, and you notice that Barebones is in that list. So I can select Barebones, and this is doing just like my other videos. It will install this particular plugin, and as the installation takes place, you'll notice that LazyVim is bootstrapping itself, and it's bringing in the plugins, the customizations, things like that. Don't worry about the errors that may occur during this. They seem to recover. And like if you're having issues with connecting to GitHub or anything like that, you might notice those kind of errors. But you notice the task count keeps working. Eventually it's going to clear this up, and we'll see some other things happen rather quickly. Okay, that cleared itself up, and now it's starting to do some of the initial tree setter items. So we have to press the space bar a couple times. We go back into LazyVim. Now while this is happening, I'm going to switch to the other desktop, and you're going to see now I have that bigger screen, and I'm going to get more information. I can kind of get a better idea of what's going on. Now notice we've got this Vim selector nvim clone failed. Okay, cloning operation failed. That happens. Lazy will eventually take care of that when we restart our editor. It will always go out and check for new and updated plugins. So if something failed, it does recorrect. So if we go back to the other desktop, things look like they're done right at the moment. Take a look at that command, Barebones, and we see that Barebones directory is there. So there's Barebones, and if we look in this directory, there's not a lot of files here. There's 5 files. One that we really care about is the init.lua file. So we're going to take a look at that file, and as we bring that file up, we're going to notice we'll use nvim, and we will type in bare. So now we're running the Barebones configuration for NeoVim for the first time, and we're just going to run it, and we're going to notice that more activities are happening. So we notice it just resolved that selector. It's going to update it. That's fine. That's what we were looking for. We notice also that LazyVim can also be updated, so we'll just go ahead and update LazyVim, let it do its thing, and that's going to get all these tasks done. As soon as this is finished, we're going to go right back into LazyVim and get an idea of what the timing is. While this is finishing up, I'm going to go over to the other screen. You can see the pop-ups from noise or notifier coming in on the upper right-hand corner. That's default for this particular configuration of LazyVim. So I can look around, I can see what's going on. I got 20 items that are being worked on right now. If I pop back over to 5, it's not as easy to see them all, but you can see they're already up to date. Go back to 6, I see the same information. So LazyVim looks like it's done right now. So we're going to go ahead and quit LazyVim, or NeoVim I should say, and we're going to go right back in, and we just want to see what our startup time looks like. 21.8 seconds. Have no idea what I've loaded, but we will take a look at that right now. So we'll hop into the LazyVim package manager, and it's going to tell us that we've got 15 plugins loaded. Pop back over to session number 5, and you can see that that list is you can see it's a little easier to read. So we've got 15 plugins that are loaded, and if we go down a little bit, we're going to see there's about 47 that are not loaded. You get some hints in here in terms of what keystrokes load some of these plugins, or whether what like comp is going to bring in a few things, new buffers, new files are going to bring in a couple things, etc. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to get out of this, and we're going to actually edit a file at this point. So we'll use that same configuration, and this time what we will edit is the init file just to see what's in it. This time we're going to get more action. So while that's happening, we'll hop over to the bigger window. The reason for this, you can see more of those notifications coming in that Mason is actually doing more work based on this configuration. So we're just watching those things come in, and eventually they're going to finish. If we don't want to wait, we can, there's no problem, we can get out of LazyVim. The next time we go back into NeoVim, I should have said NeoVim, the next time we go back in, we will see, we might see more information if it didn't finish, which that's fine. Notice in the lower right-hand corner, you're seeing that the workspace is being looked at and analyzed because I loaded a LUA file. So in this file, my goal was to do this configuration with less than 60 lines of LUA. Let's see how I did. Okay, I got it done in 48 lines of code. That's pretty cool. So let's take a look at some of what's actually happening in this file. We see the standard setting the lazy path, and we also see that Lazy bootstraps itself. If you look at the Lazy starter kit, you're going to notice this exact line of code. It just happens to be in the plugin folder. I put it in a single file to make it easier to explain it. If we go down a little bit and bring that up, we're going to notice this is where one of the real powers of LazyVim comes in. Is in my setup of the Lazy specs, I'm identifying the default plugins for LazyVim, and I'm also identifying a bunch of core plugins. I am not doing any configuration to these items at all. I'm simply bringing them in to see what they look like and learn a little bit more about the product. So if I go to the bottom of the file, we see that the defaults, everything is lazy. I have the version checked to false. Got to have a couple color screens. I'm enabling the checker, and then I turn off a couple Vim things that I really don't need for my NeoVim experience to make my performance a little bit better. So with that, we can see that I've got a pretty robust setup. Now let's hop over and take a look at another file that I have set up for us. So we'll go to another Tmux window, and we're going to go to the demonstration. So in this particular folder, I have a bunch of test files that are language specific. So in this context, they all have the same algorithm, which is a rudimentary Fibonacci sequence. So we'll just take a look at one of those. We're going to use the same editor, and we're going to look at we'll go ahead and look at test.lua for this one. Okay, nothing fancy here. You know, it's a shout out to Brian Kurtigan. And we also do some console I/O with the print statement, and we have a for loop. We've got some branching going on. So we can see what it's doing for indenting. We can see different plugins starting to fire as we do highlighting. That's kind of cool. If we take a look at this buffer here, we see what these plugins are doing already, because when I hover over the word print, it's showing me all the files that are print in this file, which I thought was pretty cool by default. We know from an LSP standpoint, I should be able to do a Shift K to get information about that particular item that I have highlighted. Notice in this case that takes up the entire bottom of the screen. If I hop over to the other desktop, that's more reasonable. This looks more like what I would work in my normal workflow, but I see that same information. I don't have to scroll around. So if I needed to do a quick code change, I'd hop over to this window, and then I'd go right back to where I started from, move the cursor around, and next thing you know, I'm back into other pieces of code. So if I go in here and I hook up another one of these items, it tells me where that particular thing is defined. So that I thought was pretty cool, and I haven't done anything. I've just really configured LazyVim with as little as possible, and told the package manager to bring in the plugins that I want to experiment with, but I'm not doing really any configuration at this point. So now we'll take a look at some LSP info. So we'll just type in the LSP info command, and we'll bring up some information, and we're going to search for the word client. Remember, this is just another buffer, so we can do client. Now notice there's another plugin that's acting. The client, I can jump to the specific client keyword that I want to go to by pressing either the A or the S key. So I'm going to go to CLIENT, and so I'm going to pull colon in there so I can go to the first or the second one by doing the A key. Now that I've got that selected, I can use my N key to navigate back and forth. So you notice that on the first hit, it's telling us it's 1 of 2, and on the second hit, it's got 2 of 2. This is built into the configuration. Now we're going to switch over to desktop number 6, and you're going to notice that that buffer is still there, but now I can see the whole thing. I thought that was pretty cool, and I wanted to show you guys that's a way you can use this to get some kind of cool stuff done. So if we go back to desktop number 5, and we go back to our NeoVim, our Tmux window list, go back to the notes, I've demonstrated to you BSPWN and Tmux. I've also showed you how to install using NVMS and uninstall using the same program, same bash script. We've also taken a quick look at the code, and we can go back and look at that really quick by just going Control B2, and there is that code. If we hop over to number 6, we can see that code in its entirety. So this gives you that ability to go quickly between the two configurations using different desktops. And we can see really quickly that I have a bunch of plugins loaded, and I haven't done anything really. And if I go into Lazy at this point, I have 43 plugins loaded just because I've edited and looked at a couple files. So if I go in and, for example, if we go back to that desktop number 5, and we bring up this Tmux session number 3, which is where we have our code, and we get out of this file, and get out of this one as well. I got to type it right. Let's just go ahead and take a look at a C++ file. And I got a C++ file in there. I should have it. Okay. And at this point, what I want to see is I just want to see LSP info. Does it have anything? Okay, I got a client attached. I got the Clang D client attached to this buffer, which is pretty cool. So if I do the if I go back into LSP info, I'm sorry, if I go into Lazy and look at that, I've got 42 plugins loaded, and I got, so if I load a Rust file, I would expect crates to load. So what we're going to do at this point is I'm not going to exit NeoVim, but what I will do is a find file, and I'm going to CD to my root directory, and let's get YouTube LSP, and we'll go to that directory, and we are going to do a find file, and we're going to look for a main.rs. So there's the main RS file, and we're going to notice that the Rust analyzer kicks in. So we'll bring that over to another window so you can see this file is not very complicated. It's just that same Fibonacci sequence written in Rust. Notice that the tabs are being used across the top. So you've got that WinBar plugin that's actually working. So if you want to use your mouse to click, you can do that. So we're going to hop over here. We see window. We're on desktop number 6. We're going to simply go over to desktop number 5, and we are in that Rust file. If we click on the CPP file, we're in that buffer. If we go back to desktop 6, we're back there where we started from. So at this point, if we look at the Lazy again, we're up to 50 plugins. Go down a little bit, we can start doing other things to get other plugins to load. I don't need to demonstrate that for you, but the key to this is if we go back to desktop 5 and we go back to our control B2, we go back to this configuration here, you can see we haven't really done anything to customize a plugin. We are using default LazyVim plugins and the extra LazyVim plugins, and you can see this is an extremely powerful setup, and I got a lot done with just 48 lines of code. So we can see that back on the other session as well. There's that same 48 lines of code. Go to the top of file, you see on my screen, you see all 47 lines or 48 lines listed. Thank you for watching. My name is Trap. Have a great day, and may God bless you.